Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. And the Bradley Report is presented by United in Peace, Inc. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc. The show was put together, or the issues that's being discussed, was put together by none other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., and that's my wife, Terry Marsh Bradley. Got an interesting story, or really the killing of that police officer about a year from the day when another police officer had got killed, and they both came out of, I believe it's District 5 over on 111th Street. So without further ado, I want to say to God be the glory. That's Gator's story. Sister Monty, could you play that piece for me about the police officer?
Now the Chicago police now investigating the murder of off-duty officer Luis Huesca, who was shot multiple times on his way home from work yesterday, just 2 days from his 31st birthday. He paid tribute just last year to another fallen officer, also shot and killed in a Engage Park.
He's one of those guys that actually deserves this star. He's very proud to wear this star. I think Andres would have been very proud.
Investigators now visibly shaken, highlighting the city's crime crisis.
These are senseless crimes that are taking the lives of our community members. That officer was a victim of the type of crime that he was working against to keep people safe in this city.
Joining us now is Chicago Alderman. He's also a former Chicago police officer, Anthony Napolitano. Sir, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, you know, obviously you come on here as an alderman, but you're also a former cop. What's life like for the men in blue today?
You know, it's dangerous. It's probably the most dangerous profession going right now in the city of Chicago, besides being just a citizen. Nobody's safe here right now. We have leadership in city council that's more worried about funding money towards illegal immigrants and getting more votes for their next election than they are protecting our city and our citizens. My father had a saying, when your police officers aren't safe anymore, you've lost your city. And that's what's going on here.
You know, Anthony, this is a statement from the mayor's office. He said, "My Office of Community Safety in the Chicago Police Department is committed to putting every resource available toward apprehending anyone involved in this morning's shooting and bringing them to justice. As the investigation continues, we will provide immediate updates as they become available." So, you know, I guess this is a statement to say, hey, they're going to catch the killer, but it doesn't address the anti-cop rhetoric. I mean, all of us are against the bad cops that are in the force, including the good cops. But it doesn't seem like the mayor is focusing on the attack on the law enforcement.
No, not at all. And where that statement comes up very short is they're not putting every resource towards finding these offenders. We're actually, in city council, we're actually taking as many resources as we can away from our police officers. We're defunding them as much as possible, or our floor leaders now are defunding them as much as possible. That's a statement that you make after every shooting when you lose a police officer. It's written down, it's somewhere in a drawer, they just pull it out and hand it to them, and that's what they read. It's not the truth. They have a better chance of this offender winning a lawsuit against the city of Chicago for unfortunately getting this poor officer's blood on his clothes, and he'll sue the city and win what we call the city lottery, because they don't care about police officers. They don't care about citizens anymore. We've lost our city and no one's doing anything about it anymore. So I don't believe any of that talk anymore. They're taking away ShotSpotter. They're taking police out of our schools. They're demonizing the police, and they're celebrating the lawsuits against these police officers every week in city council. They're not fighting any of them. Where there's a good case, or they're not fighting them, they're settling them, because it demonizes the police department even more and makes them look like the enemy.
Anthony, I'm just curious, because you guys are going to have to prepare for a funeral for Officer Luis. Will the mayor even be welcome?
Yeah, the mayor will be welcome. You know, you can't put what happened on the mayor. He's a human being. He's a man. He's a family man too. I'm sure he does love his officers in his heart. It's just where this administration is going and where our floor leaders on city council are going. They hate the police, and they stated as much as possible that they have no love for our police, and they're going to defund them every day they possibly can. The mayor will be there, and he will be saddened by what happened.
Anthony, the law enforcement being bigger people in this tragedy. Thank you so much for joining the program.
You know, violence in Chicago and everywhere else is continuing that no one, in my opinion, or in anyone else's opinion, if they deal with realness, can stop. It amazes me how it seemed like, what can I say? People try to make it appear like the mayor is responsible for violence that's happening in the city of Chicago, especially when a police officer get killed by another criminal, or when police shoot someone that's African American. They want to blame that on the mayor. When someone black shoots someone black, they say the mayor got to do something to stop the senseless violence. I think, well, what I know from what I've been seeing on the news, they have a person of interest. They haven't arrested him yet, but they have been showing his picture all on the news of a possible suspect. And they telling the city of Chicago, if you see this individual, don't try to apprehend him, don't try to follow him, call the police. Me and my wife and our family send our condolences to the family of the officer that has been slain and his friends. The same way like we send our condolences to the female officer that was from that same district that was slain almost a year ago to the day, or maybe a day off. The city and everyone need to come together. If you hear something, or if you hear someone that's thinking about doing something, they say something. But sometimes, in my opinion, we have to understand that crime, and especially crime and violence, is spontaneous. You don't know when it's going to happen or who it's going to happen to. Those individuals, or that individual, had in his mind that he wanted to carjack someone. Anyone, that was on his mind. It could have been an elderly person. He didn't know that the person that he carjacked was a police officer. I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not trying to find no excuses. I'm just telling everyone, like the children in the street says, we all got to keep our head on a swivel. Violence is happening everywhere. Individuals are jumping out of cars 3 and 4 deep and armed. It don't matter what time of the day. It don't matter if it's on the north side, south side, west side, Streeterville, downtown, on the low end, or the Wild Honeys. It don't matter. Coming out of a grocery store in the parking lot to put the groceries in your car. It don't matter. Me personally, I hear people saying it's against our civil rights for law enforcement to be able to use the cameras, and when they get a facial ID, they don't want them to be able to use that ID in order to help apprehend the individuals that's doing this senseless violence. I think they got that technology, I think, over in China or whatever it is. But don't blame the mayor or the state's attorney. As if they the ones that's responsible for the violence. We can't start pointing fingers. I'm beginning to agree, like everyone else is about to agree, that sometimes if an individual get arrested for a gun case and he already had a gun case, and then we finding out that that individual get out on bond and then he go and murder someone and still have the ankle bracelet on. That ain't the police's fault. That ain't the prosecutor's fault. It was a judge that made that decision. But who am I to say other than we all have to pray that God allow us to get home and our families get home safe, and then we don't become victims to the crimes that we can't control, the murders and the violence we can't control. That being said, there's a lot of other things that's been happening. I know y'all been watching the news or hearing the news. Trump is finally on trial. And the first witness used to be over the Enquirer magazine or those tabloids that talk and do all kind of things with their stories. He once was a friend of former President Trump, and he helped Trump win 2016 election by making sure the stories about the two women that was dealing with Trump, and Trump had his lawyer that was a fixer to go pay them so they don't do a story. Well, he's in trial. And for the first time, from what I'm seeing and hearing on the news, he's finally come to the conclusion what it feels to be a defendant in a courtroom during trial. And I believe he should get a fair trial like everybody else. But you can see him, he got to listen to the judge. When the judge tell him sit down, he means sit down. When the judge says shut up, he means shut up. We understand that because we ain't never been privileged. I'm not talking about just because I'm black. There's a lot of people that haven't been just as privileged as Trump. And white people, Asians, Hispanics, they'll go to jail, sit in front of that judge, not allowed to use telephone, not allowed to talk about threatening the judges and the prosecutors and the families of the prosecutors and the judges and witnesses and those that's going to be a part of the jury. Excuse me. We couldn't dare do that because they would have locked us up for contempt, 30 days, lock them up, you violated my rule. I tell you sit down, you standing up, you frowning, you threatening the people. But he's entitled to a fair trial. Other things have been happening within our country that makes a lot of sense. The Speaker of the House finally put that $95 billion national, that's what I call a national defense thing on there that's going to help get monies for Ukraine, for Israel, and for Taiwan. He put it out there on the floor so the Republicans, so the whole House, not just Republicans, so the whole House can vote on it for it to be passed so it can go to the Senate. I just heard that the United States Senate agreed to it, and now they sent it to the president to sign. But there's a lot of concern. They're glad that Ukraine is getting what they need. And like the Speaker said, his son is going into the Naval Academy. And the Speaker, what y'all need to know, he's a part of a leadership group called the Eight. They're the ones that get the real briefings on what happened. So he got briefings that the rest of the House members, intelligence briefings, weren't getting. So like he said, he'd rather send bullets to the Ukraine instead of American bodies to the Ukraine to fight against Russia. For whatever reason, it makes sense. But he should have did it 6 months ago, but we're glad that he did it now. There's Republicans that want to get rid of him as being the Speaker because he did that, because they feel like he shouldn't talk with the Democrats to help pass legislation for the betterment of our country. It's crazy, but that's the Republican caucus. It passed. Tony Prattwinkle has gotten re-elected as the chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party, which is wonderful. The Speaker, Illinois Speaker of the House, has been recommended as well as appointed to be the Proviso Township Committeeman because of the death of the clerk of Cook County. Karen Yarborough had died. So all I can say in the midst of all this senseless violence that's happening around us, we got to keep moving, trying to make things right. Some people don't like that the mayor was able to get the city council to agree to the $70 million for the migrants. He won that in the city council. I think it was 30 votes to 18. And he also was fortunate to get $1.25 billion, a bond deal done in order to get money for affordable housing and all that type of things to help deal with the concerns of the people. But you know, what we got to understand is this too. The truth of the matter is our migrant problem was man-made and created with malicious intent from the governor of Texas that just starts sending busloads and planes loads of migrants to the city of Chicago in particular to create chaos and confusion during the Democratic convention. It was inhumane what he was doing, but that's what he did it for. The mayor didn't bring him here. We all remember when they was camped out in police stations all across the city. Since Brandon been the mayor, they no longer in the police stations. He didn't bring him here, but he's now the mayor, and he got to be concerned about all the people in the city of Chicago, especially the ones that voted against him, especially the ones that's still plotting to make sure that they can kick him out of there. You got a guy from up in Lakeview trying to push a law to recall him when there is no such law where you can recall a mayor. I don't know if that's hateism or racism, so many isms. But I never seen anyone, African Americans, Hispanics, or no one, that dare try to put in a recall for Rahm Emanuel, for Mayor Daley, or Jane Byrne, or Belandi. But you sometimes have to wonder had Earl lived, would they have put in a recall against Earl? I'm saying, people, it takes all of us to make this better for us. November the 5th, 2024 is a very important election. Don't let those MAGA, Trump, Republicans, and supporters, be they black, white, or Hispanic, come and try to convince you that the Republican Party and Trump is better than what we have now. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for. I'm just voicing my opinion. Talking about Gator's vote. I'm not talking about United in Peace Inc.'s vote. I'm talking about Wallace Gator's vote. Just voicing my opinion. You entitled to yours. But come out and vote. Read about your candidates, see what they're doing. But please come out and vote. And with that, I want to say to God be the glory. That's my story.